Thinking about buying a new laptop? MSI have just updated their entire range, from sleek, stealthy profiles to high-end gaming PCs to laptops designed for creators. They're all sporting the latest Intel 13th gen CPUs and Nvidia's 40 series GPUs to deliver unparalleled performance. Click the link below to check out the new range or stick around to the end of the video to learn more. Gamers, happy Mario movie release day. As soon as I wrap up my recording for this, I'm going to an advanced screening here in Sydney. The critic scores to this point have not been too encouraging, but I don't know, man. I feel like this is going to be one for the fans, so I'm holding out hope that the big end delivers the goods. I mean, they cast Chris Pratt as the voice of Mario, so clearly they know what they're doing, right? Right? Pretty big week of gaming news this week, headlined by the sad but unsurprising death of E3. I think we all know it was coming, but it doesn't make it any less sad. I was hoping for an Idris Elba cameo on stage this year at the Cyberpunk expansion bit, but I guess we'll now have to settle for an encore performance from the Just Dance dancers. Sad times indeed. That wasn't all that collapsed in a heap this week. Did you see the Last of Us PC port reviews? Did you see the screenshots? Joel, you need to get some sleep, my dude. A lot to get through this week and precious few words to waste on an intro block, so let's get to it. Here comes the news. That is right, ladies and gentlemen. We are gathered here today to mourn the untimely passing of E3. Just 25 years young, gone too soon. It had such a promising future of cringe ahead of it. Rest in peace in pepperoni E3. You shall be immediately replaced by Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest. But hold on, back up a second. Is E3 really dead? And if so, how did we get here? Well, the story starts a long time ago, actually, for the decline of E3 was not a recent phenomenon. As far back as 2016, publishers like EA were abandoning the E3 show floor to host their own events, allowing them to run them how they wanted to and without the huge expense associated with hiring floor space and building a massive E3 booth. This trend would accelerate over the years as companies became more comfortable with doing digital directs over in-person stuff, resulting in the likes of Sony skipping E3 for the first time ever in 2019. The parallel track here is that E3 was not evolving as an event. It continued to be entirely in-person, very expensive for both consumers and exhibitors, and it felt increasingly out of sync with the more digitally focused strategies that publishers were relying on to promote their games. This stagnation was highlighted by the departure of Jeff Keighley from E3's organizing body back in 2020, with him directly citing his concern that E3 was not keeping up with the times. Then of course came the pandemic, which effectively shuttered the event, since hosting massive in-person conventions with thousands of people all handling one controller and breathing on each other wasn't the most attractive prospect for both consumers and brands eager to avoid lawsuits. Then last year, the worst of the pandemic behind us, there was faint hope that E3 would make a return, but that would all come to naught as the organizing body, the ESA, just couldn't stand anything up. That left a space wide open for Jeff Keighley to run his Summer Games Fest, a digital direct combined with a small floor show open to media and content creators only. This year for 2023, the ESA knew that this was their last shot to get this show back on the road, and they also knew that everyone hated them and that no one trusted them. So to get the job done, the ESA enlisted the help of ReedPop, event organizers who run some of gaming's best events, including the PAX conventions that happen all around the world. If anyone was going to get the job done, it was these people. Things were looking positive at first, as a number of publishers, including the likes of Ubisoft, Sega, Tencent, and more, had said they'd be attending, but at the same time, a number of others confirmed that they were out. Namely Sony, Nintendo, Xbox, EA, Devolver, and more. At GDC, there was a lot of chatter in the industry about who the fuck is going to be at E3, and the answer consistently came back, I don't know. This no doubt would have shaken any company still eyeing the event, but when Ubisoft pulled out just last week, the house of cards tumbled, with both Tencent and Sega dropping out as well. The ESA then put out a statement confirming that E3 was donezo, and that was that. It must be said that there are events still happening at around the time when E3 would have happened. Jeff Keighley is hosting his Summer Games Fest event, Microsoft are hosting a showcase and Starfield deep dive on the Sunday, Ubisoft are also hosting a thing on the Monday, and Devolver will surely return with whatever batshit crazy stuff they usually dish up. But E3 proper? That is gone, and it ain't coming back. As I said earlier, if ReedPop couldn't get this thing going, then no one can. And the fact is, the way the industry promotes games has changed. It is about digital showcases, it is about partnerships with streamers and YouTubers, it's about shadow drops and Steam Next Fest and all sorts of shit. Jeff called it right back in 2020 when he said that E3 just wasn't keeping pace with an evolving industry, and as a result, E3 has paid the ultimate price. As I've said many times in the past, I know it's cool to be cynical and hate on E3 for all the lies and the hype and the cringe, but I loved it. I really did, and I'm so sad to see it's gone. I consider myself really lucky to have had the chance to experience it a bunch of times, and I hope that other events are able to generate the same sort of excitement that E3 did. Anyway, this has been a long block, but if you're keen for more chat on the matter, then I discussed it at length on the Friends Per Second podcast this week, but we actually were joined by Alana Pierce. That episode will be up on the channel tomorrow, as well as on podcast feeds. I'll leave a link to that below the like button. All right, that block was a bummer, so how about something to cheer us up? How about some Zelda gameplay? Roll it, Austin. This week, Eiji Aonuma, producer of the Legend of Zelda series, sat in a big white room and barreled a camera so that he could introduce us to his next opus, Tears of the Kingdom. It's a big deal because it's the most in-depth look at the gameplay we've had since the title was revealed a few years ago now, and it's offering some big expansions of the sandbox. Did someone say meat arrows? Yes, they did, many times, and there were many memes. This new arrow technology comes courtesy of the game's fusion system, which allows you to combine all sorts of weird shit to make even more weird shit. There's rock on a stick, and stick on a stick, and probably some other stick stuff too, but just look how long this stick is. The best showcase was Link straight up building a speedboat out of some stuff he found laying around. He's like MacGyver with elf ears. This looks pretty incredible, to be honest, and it shows Nintendo certainly aren't resting on their laurels here. Even in this brief showcase, we saw so many new, inventive gameplay elements, so it's daunting to imagine what the full game will have in store for us. Believe it or not, this is just a few short weeks away now. 5 weeks and we are there. I am very much counting the minutes. Speaking of Nintendo, here's a nice new challenge for their legal department. Dolphin Emulator is coming to Steam. So Dolphin is an emulator that lets you play both GameCube and Wii games on your PC or other devices. It's totally free, available online at a bunch of places, and it's legal because emulation is legal. You are of course meant to own a copy of the game that you are emulating, which of course everybody does, but let's say hypothetically if someone did want to pirate a game without owning the original, which they would never do, they could use a downloaded ROM and then play it through Dolphin. Not that anyone would ever do that, of course. So Dolphin is freely available online, but it being hosted by Steam is a whole other matter, because in that instance, Steam is essentially publishing that software. Going after a small-time pirate for a few $100,000 is just a light warm-up for Nintendo's lawyers, but if they saw the chance to tussle with Valve and get a settlement in the hundreds of millions of dollars for their role in enabling part of a piracy process, I can see Nintendo's lawyers wanting to get their fangs into that one. For now, Valve are hosting Dolphin, or at least the store page for it. It will be available later in the year. It will be fascinating to see if Valve or Nintendo let it happen. The layoffs across the tech industry continue, only this time they're hitting the video games industry directly. EA announced this week that they're making approximately 6% of their workforce redundant as they seek to restructure. This move will affect some 700 people across EA's global operations, and it comes after EA had already let go some 200 QA workers supporting Apex Legends, and the closure of 2 studios supporting mobile ports for Apex and Battlefield. It is the first major job cuts announcement from across the video games industry in some time, but it certainly won't be the last. And finally, PSVR 2 sales estimates are in, and they are not great. So before launch, there was a rumor doing the rounds that Sony had slashed its production and sales forecast for the new VR headset. Sony pushed back on the production claims, but were notably silent on the sales part. Well, this week, a report from the IDC projects that Sony are on track to sell approximately 270,000 units in the first month of sales, well below their projection of some 2 million units in the launch window. There's any number of reasons why this number is coming in low, but the price point has got to be one of them. The PSVR 2 is more expensive than the PS5 itself, though to be fair, it is excellent kit and well worth the price if you're a VR enthusiast. This sluggish start doesn't bode well for the long-term prospects of the hardware, since developers will naturally be skittish when it comes to green-lighting ambitious VR projects. With so much invested in this hardware, we can certainly expect Sony to start pump priming by some means soon, either through discounts or through new first-party software announcements. Or hopefully both. A quick lightning round to finish off. CD Projekt Red have announced that 2022 was a very good year indeed. Their second most profitable ever, as Cyberpunk's bug fixes tied in nicely to the launch of the Edge Runners anime, resulting in mammoth sales and concurrent player counts. Not to mention the announcement of that Phantom Liberty DLC. Speaking of which, CD Projekt Red also confirmed that news of the upcoming expansion will start to filter out in June, which just so happens to be when E3 would have been. maybe my Idris Elba cameo dreams aren't dead after all. Stick a fork in it because Marvel's Avengers is done. The final content patch went live this week, marking the end of its live service support. It'll go into maintenance mode now for the foreseeable future, but one day the service will be switched off and the game will be just another sad, distant, dead service memory. The good news though is that this patch made almost all of the cosmetics free, so if you've ever wanted to play Marvel's Avengers, ironically enough, this is absolutely the time to do it. Final Fantasy XVI has gone gold. The announcement came yesterday, courtesy of a Twitter post from the developer team, sporting a handsome Torgal plushie. Nice bit of merchandise cross-promotion there. Yoshi P did say that only a meteor striking the headquarters would stop the game from shipping in June, and it looks like he was telling the truth. RE4 Remake sold 3 million units in its first 2 days on sale, making it one of the fastest selling Resident Evil games of all time. That is good, because it is one of the best video games of all time, for real. A review is below the like button. And finally, a quick shout out to my Australian brethren. DreamHack is coming up and tickets are now on sale. It's April 28th to 30th and it features tournaments from CSGO and League of Legends, as well as LAN tournaments, a cosplay competition, musical acts, and more. I've been before and it was a great time. If you are a nerd in Melbourne in April, I strongly recommend checking it out. I'll leave a link to the event website below the like button. So what got announced or delayed this week? Well, Park Beyond is one that I'm actually looking forward to. I haven't played a theme park style game since actual theme park, like back in the day. And as I watched trailers for this, I was like, you know what? It might be fun to check out one of these games again. A new trailer just dropped courtesy of the release date announcement, now locked in for June 16th. And there's also a beta running from the 9th to the 19th of May. You can sign up for that over on their website. This is the weird one. Remember Multiverses, the Warner Brothers take on Smash that took the world by storm when it launched into open beta last year? Well, it didn't maintain that momentum, losing 95% or more of its player base since that launch and generally falling out of favor with the fighting games community. Not what you want when your game hasn't even officially launched. The development team behind the title made some big announcements this week, no doubt aimed at getting the title back on track. Firstly, they're committing to an early 2024 official release, and secondly, they're taking the open beta down at the end of June this year. People will still be able to access the client for local matches and training, but no matchmaking servers will be up and no new content will be deployed while the team work to improve things like matchmaking, game balance, and their live service delivery cadence. It's a bold strategy, effectively taking your game down so you can relaunch it 6 months later. Let's see if it pays off. Live Alive is a remaster of a classic RPG. The remaster hit Switch last year to rave reviews, and it's just been announced for both Steam and PlayStation, arriving on April 27th. Square Enix's refusal to acknowledge the existence of the Xbox platform continues, I guess. Huge week for Vampire Survivors. Not only did it take home a BAFTA, but the team also announced more DLC on the way. It's called The Tides of Foscari, and it features 8 new characters, 13 new weapons, 1 new stage, 7 music tracks, and 20 new achievements. If you've played Vampire Survivors, you would know that that is a hell of a lot of content and more than enough reason to return to the single greatest game you can play on a Steam Deck. The update is paid DLC and it drops on April 13th. One final announcement this week is for a games console. Valve seem to have really lit a fire under the handheld gaming market, with a number of competitors emerging since then. The latest is one from ASUS and it's called the ROG Ally. The full list of specs isn't available, but they do claim to have worked with AMD to develop their fastest APU yet, plus the device will sport a 1080p 120Hz screen. They're claiming it has twice the performance of the Steam Deck. Tech reviewer Dave 2D couldn't share specifics, but after spending some time with the device, he's of a view that ASUS aren't lying. ASUS are still cagey on price, but they strongly intimated that the title will be competitively priced, putting it in the same ballpark as Steam Deck's $400. Looks like a pretty rad piece of tech, and I'll certainly try to get my hands on one soon so I can report back. 2 delay announcements and a delisting this week. First up, Atlas Fallen has copped a delay. This is the next thing from Deck 13, makers of The Surge. It's definitely not a Souls-like though. It's much closer to something like Darksiders than anything else. I actually previewed this a number of weeks back, link below the like button, and I liked it, though I did have some concerns about PC performance, which was really rocky for me. The other concern I had was the release date, an open world adventure game releasing just 4 days after Tears of the Kingdom. I don't know, man, doesn't sound like a winning strategy to me. Luckily, Deck 13 have shifted that date out. In a tweet from their official handle, they've confirmed that the game will now ship on August 10th. They cited the need for more time to deliver the best possible experience, and I'm sure giving Zelda a little breathing room doesn't hurt either. The next delay is a weird one. Ark 2 was announced a little while ago. Remember that awkward trailer with Vin Diesel riding a T-Rex? Yeah, that one. So this game was meant to drop this year. Turns out not so much, as the game will now be delayed until the end of 2024. Pretty chunky delay, so players can just keep playing the existing game in the meantime, right? Well, sort of, but not without paying. Developer studio Wildcard announced this week that Ark is being remastered in Unreal Engine 5, but instead of being a free update, you have to buy it for $50 US. This does come with a copy of Ark 2 when that eventually launches, but there's no telling when that will be, since this studio has an absolutely abysmal reputation for keeping any of its promises. Case in point, there was meant to be a major performance update coming to Ark for free. Turns out that's no longer happening, as development focus now turns to this remaster. If that sounds shitty, don't worry, we're just getting warmed up. To force people to buy this $50 remaster, Wildcard are turning off the official servers for the original game. Just gone. You can still run private servers, but all official server support ends then and there. On top of all of this, when Ark's many DLC packs are remastered, players will need to buy those again too, expected to cost around $20 a pop. This is genuinely one of the scammiest moves I've seen from a studio in a long time, and you have to wonder if they're going to get away with it. The Ark community have put up with a lot over the years, but surely this is a bridge too far, right? I don't know, I guess we'll find out when the remaster launches in August. Finally, that one delisting this week was for Lemnis Gate. This was a really interesting looking turn-based, time-bending competitive shooter. Totally unique premise that sadly has not found the traction needed to keep it going. Lemnis will be delisted from stores on the 11th of April, at which point multiplayer functionality will be disabled except for local play available on console versions. PC does not support local play, so anyone who bought this on PC, I hope you got some enjoyment out of it, because it is little more than a line item in your Steam library now. So what came out last week? Well, crime boss ROCKAY City arrived, but you'd be forgiven for not knowing, because I swear to God the chatter around this game has been as quiet as a church mouse. Despite sporting voice performances from Danny Glover, Chuck Norris, Kim Basinger, Vanilla Ice, Michael Madsen, and more 1980s throwback talent, there just doesn't seem to be any marketing whatsoever behind this title. A situation not at all helped by its Epic Games Store exclusivity. Still, the game did release, and some people played it, I think, some reviewers at least, and they were none too impressed. This thing is coming in at a very weak 49 on OpenCritic. The reviews range from bad to brutal. Metro Games Central scored it a 3 out of 10 and said, quote, "An unlikable, repetitive, and blandly designed clone of Payday that wastes its celebrity-filled cast on an equally substandard script," end quote. Ouch. And Game Informer agreed, also scoring it a 3 out of 10 and saying, quote, "Crime boss ROCKAY City is proof that star power isn't everything. In fact, it's a reminder that a celebrity cast does nothing for a game when it's void of anything interesting or fun to support it," end quote. I don't imagine people are going to be counting the minutes until the Steam release for this one. Yet another big win for the Epic Games Store, I guess. Oh man. Speaking of big wins, The Last of Us has finally arrived on the PC this week, and Naughty Dog have maintained their sterling reputation for quality and polish by delivering one of the finest PC ports we have wait, sorry, I misread that. I was reading Sony Santa Monica and God of War, which was the highest rated PC title of last year. The Last of Us on PC is actually a fucking disaster and sets a new low bar for PC ports from platform holders. And around launch, the game was sitting at mostly negative, with only 33% of reviews on Steam being positive. This has climbed a little since then to a mixed 45%. That is still a shockingly low rating for one of the most beloved games of all time. Issues with the port are beyond numerous: terrible optimization and performance, regular bugs, glitches and crashes, issues with controls and keyboard and mouse mapping, shaders that can take upwards of 2 hours to pre-cache, and so much more. I really recommend checking out the Digital Foundry video on it for a complete breakdown, but yeah, long story short, shit sucks and Sony really dropped the ball on this one. Because this is ultimately on Sony, not Naughty Dog, since they did not handle the port. Sony oversee the porting process, choosing the provider and giving it the all clear to be published. Incidentally, the port was handled by a studio called Iron Galaxy, and that became a real talking point since they handled the legendarily bad Batman Arkham Knight port years ago. So people were all like, see, Iron Galaxy strikes again. But you know what else they helped port recently? The Metro Prime Remaster. They assisted Retro Studios on that. Before that, they did the excellent Uncharted PC port and the absurdly good Diablo 3 Switch port, and tons of other stuff actually. Go look them up. I'm not defending the quality of this port, I'm just saying that this team has done some good work since Arkham Knight, and we need to keep that in mind. Anyway, The Last of Us on PC, it totally blows. Don't buy it, or just buy it on the PS5 if you have one, or PS4, or PS3. Come to think of it, any of those systems will work better than the PC. Terra Nil is a reverse city builder where you have to revivify a natural landscape corrupted by urbanization and pollution. I played it a while ago and it was delightful. Turns out it's still delightful here at launch. game currently sits at a very positive 84% on Steam, while critics have it at a similarly strong 82% on OpenCritic. PC Invasion scored this one a 9 out of 10, saying, quote, "Beautiful, complex, and captivating, Terra Nil is a delightful strategy game only held back by a smaller amount of content and some difficult to fulfill objectives," end quote. That is out now on PC and mobile, funnily enough. Forza Horizon 5 got its Rally Adventure DLC last week. Unsurprisingly, it's just as excellent as the rest of the Forza Horizon package. It's sitting at a strong 82 on OpenCritic. Luke Riley leads the racing coverage over at IGN, and he gave it his tick of approval with a score of 8 out of 10 and a write-up saying, quote, "Rally Adventure is more conventional than last year's outlandish Hot Wheels expansion, but fusing the open world foundations of Forza Horizon with the arcade accessibility of Sega Rally is still a winning combination," end quote. Dredge is one that I've been hyping up for a while now, and I'm relieved to learn that I did not lead you astray. We covered the critic scores last week for this one, where it's sitting at a strong 83 on OpenCritic. Great result. With the game now in the hands of punters, the people have spoken and offered overwhelmingly positive affirmation. 95% of them on Steam, in fact. I'm still chipping away at this one on my Steam Deck, and I very much predict we'll be hearing a lot more about this one when it comes time to hand out Game of the Year gongs. So if you want to be all indie hipster and play it before it was cool, now is your chance. It's cheap as chips and available on all platforms. Get on it. And finally, what if you were trapped in an Amazon factory and everyone else was dead? That's basically the premise of The Last Worker, a narrative-led puzzle game that you can also play in VR if you like. Middling reviews for this one though, mixed 64% on Steam, better with critics who have it at 73 on OpenCritic. Push Square scored it a 6 out of 10 saying, quote, "Fulfilling online orders in a capitalism-induced apocalypse is an excellent idea marred by inconsistent execution and confounding restrictions placed on VR movement. It's short enough not to overstate its simplicity, but it's not smart enough to make any astute thematic statements," end quote. And that was the week that was, so what's coming out this week? It's a bit of a quiet week actually, but there are some standouts here to look forward to. First up is Meet Your Maker, the latest thing from Behavior Interactive, the team behind Dead by Daylight. This is also an asymmetrical multiplayer game, but in a very different format. It's sort of like Mario Maker meets a brutal first-person shooter. People create custom labyrinths full of traps and enemies, and then brave souls have to make their way through them or die trying, repeatedly. This one arrived on Steam just a few hours ago at the time of writing and is currently sitting at mostly positive 70%. Early reviews indicate that there's a lot of trolling going on with the level designs, as the only incentive is to make levels that rack up high kill counts, rather than being, fun to play or whatever. Very likely this one has a ways to go before its loop is fully ironed out, but if you want to check it out now, you can. It's on all platforms bar the Switch, and it is a PS Plus Game of the Month, so that's nice. Road 96 is a procedural road trip game. Hitch a ride with a weird hippie or a truck driver or a soccer mom or whatever, and ideally you'll never have the same trip twice. The title got very solid reviews when it arrived last year, and the team behind it have just released a prequel to the game. It's called Road 96 Mile Zero, and it hits all platforms today. Ghost of the Sea Rats is a charming looking 2D side-scroller beat-em-up starring rats, hence the name. It's got a lovely hand-drawn art style, and it's co-op, and it's out on all platforms on the 6th. Hey, now this next one looks pretty cool. It's called Raven's Watch, and it's from the team behind Curse of the Dead Gods. If you don't remember Curse of the Dead Gods, it's probably because it released just after Hades, and they were kind of similar, so even though Curse of the Dead Gods was really good, Hades definitely hogged a lot of the spotlight. But Curse was good, and the team behind it are back at it with Raven's Watch, another roguelike action game, only this time with a much darker setting, almost Diablo-esque actually, which I'm not at all averse to. This is also playable in co-op, by the way. Can't do that in Hades. So yeah, I don't know, I just have a good feeling about this one. It's a talented team working in a space they know. It's only an early access launch, but if you're keen, it hits on the 6th, exclusive to PC for now. And finally, a title I've been eagerly anticipating and I'm currently playing through, EVERSPACE 2. The sequel to the arcade space shooter roguelike takes a very different turn here, becoming much closer to an open world RPG. Think The Witcher in space, but with a lot more loot. Like I said, I'm playing it now and it's very impressive so far. Visually, it is really something. The sense of exploration is fantastic, and some of the writing I've encountered has been pretty great. I'm still not far enough into the loot side of things to be able to see if that's working, but I'm definitely keen to keep pushing forward into the outer reaches of space. This one is arriving exclusively for PC on the 6th, with console releases planned for later this year. And there's a new golf game coming out this week, but nobody cares. Hey, put this on your radar.
Wake up, handsome. Time to get up.
Damn, what happened to my world? What happened to my parents?
Zero's remaking your world for himself.
There was one other game that released last week that I didn't shout out, and it's this one, Gripper. To be honest, I hadn't actually heard of it until recently, but I saw a clip of it on Twitter and I was like, what the hell is that? Had a closer look, and yeah, this looks like the real deal. It's a really stylish looking bullet hell boss rush game. It's called Gripper because the gameplay loop revolves around picking up things with your bike and hurling them at bosses as they chase you, and while it looks like a pretty straightforward gameplay loop, it still looks plenty speedy and plenty fun. The presentation here is excellent, featuring some great character and level design, and there's also a bit of story thrown in for good measure. It's a discount title, only around $15 I think, so if you're looking for something a little out of left field, then this might be for you. Like I said, it dropped this week, and if you want to grab it, I've profiled it over on my Steam Curator page, which also has links to all of the other put this on your radar stuff I've recently covered. I'll leave a link to all of that below the like button. Sort of free stuff time now, and boy do we have a lot to get through this week since it is the first week of the month. Why don't we start with Epic for a change? Right now you can still grab Tunch, that cute 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up thing, but stealthily added to last week's lineup was also The Silent Age. It's a point-and-click thriller about uncovering a government conspiracy. Great reviews on Steam, meant to be very solid indeed. That will disappear on the 7th though, replaced by 2 new titles. The first is Blazing Sails Battle Royale, which is, you know, basically Sea of Thieves. The other offering from Epic is pretty rad. It's Dying Light Enhanced Edition, the first game from Techland after Dead Island that took their first-person open-world zombie formula and made it a little more serious-faced. I didn't play this one, I skipped straight to 2, but there are plenty of people who still prefer the original to the sequel, especially when it comes to the story. So yeah, all yours for free, courtesy of Le Epic Games Store. What's next? How about PlayStation? The PS Plus lineup for the month has been revealed. We've already spoken about Meet Your Maker, that Mario Maker meets Quake shooter thing. In addition to that, Sony ponies will also be getting their hands on Sackboy: A Big Adventure, a charming 3D platformer that always felt like it's flying under the radar despite how beloved it is. The final inclusion for the month is Tales of Iron, a brutally difficult 2D side-scrolling RPG featuring some gorgeous art design and the talented Doug Cockle, voice of Geralt. Always nice to hear his rumbly timbre pop up in a video game. Xbox, you're up next. The Game Pass refresh was just announced a few hours ago, and it's a pretty solid month. NHL 23 is on there for you North Americans, and I guess Europeans. You guys have Ice too. Ghostwire Tokyo arrives on Xbox for the first time this month, as its exclusivity deal with PlayStation is about to expire. I wasn't a fan of this game, mainly owing to its generic open-world trappings, but the setting and the bestiary was top tier. Tango Works definitely had something here, they just didn't quite know what to do with it. Anyway, the game is getting a content update later this month that will add a new combat arena time trial-based mode, so all the more reason to check it out if you haven't yet. Game Pass also gets Loop Hero, which is a clever inversion on the dungeon-crawling roguelike, where you actually build the dungeon. This one got plenty of Game of the Year nods when it launched back in 2021, so it's well worth your time. And finally, Minecraft Legends arrives later this month, day 1 on Game Pass. I was recently invited to a behind closed doors event preview for this. I can't share any details as it's under embargo until this video goes live, but I will tell you that I really liked what I saw, and I'm genuinely excited to get my hands on this one on the 18th. There's also Games with Gold, but to be honest with you, this video is running very long and I don't have the word count to properly bully it. Besides, Peaky Blinders Mastermind is on there, and if there's one thing I know, it's that you don't fuck with the Peaky Blinders. Moving right along. Prime Gaming is Twitch's sort of free games program. You get in on that so long as you have a Twitch Prime or Amazon Prime subscription. They appear to be moving to a weekly cadence now instead of monthly, so you'll have to log in a bit more regularly to get everything on offer. Spaced out over April, you can get the excellent Adios, the now classic Wolfenstein: The New Order, the even more classic Icewind Dale, Interplanetary City Builder Terraformers, and the surprisingly great 2D action RPG Grind. It looks and sounds gross, but it's actually a pretty great game. Finally, have you heard about the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV, which has a free trial including the entirety of A Realm Reborn and the award-winning Heaven's expansion up to level 60 with no restrictions on playtime? If you rolled your eyes at that copy pasta, then you, my friend, better keep rolling because that copy pasta is about to expand. Right now you can get the Stormblood expansion for free, just for free. You go to Square Enix's awful online portal thing, spend like 3 hours trying to work out how to log in and what any of it means, and at that point you can add the expansion to your account. To be honest, it's not the best Final Fantasy XIV expansion. In fact, it's by far the worst, but it's still a part of the saga and it's got some amazing boss battles and music, and it's basically the last time we hear from Lise, and that is only a good thing. That is available right now until the 8th of May, and it coincides with a free logging campaign, so it's never been a better time to return to Eorzea, is what my friends keep telling me while I keep grinding more Destiny. For our feel-good story for the week, I thought it might be good to do a quick cruise through the best April Fool's Day pranks the game industry threw at us this year. Always a good time. It was more muted and safe than years prior, but there were still some good standouts. I mean, there was this fake announcement of Power Wash Survivors, an announcement I am genuinely pissed off is not real. IGN managed to enrage absolutely everybody by fake announcing that Chris Pratt's voice would be incorporated into actual Mario video games. People did not like this at all. Nintendo Life Fake announced that the worst Zelda game of all time, the one made for the Philips CDI, was being remastered for Switch. Also, low-key pissed off this isn't real, Blizzard Fake announced that googly eyes would be added to all characters in Overwatch. Shame this one isn't real, since it would have been nice to see something to differentiate Overwatch 1 and 2. My personal favorite though comes from a company that has made its fair share of stupid shit that looks like an April Fool's joke, but it turns out it's actually real. So I'm still not 100% convinced that this is an April Fool's joke, but let's just assume it is for now. Roll it, Austin.
Being on a losing streak sucks, and when things get hairy, I need to put on my best game face. Introducing the Razor, the world's first shaving mouse that brings out your A game. Experience ultra-sharp grooming at 360 follicles per second for smooth, seamless strokes that'll clean up your confidence.
The great irony of this is that I would actually buy this product, not gonna lie. Please don't tell Manscaped that. Or SteelSeries for that matter. Guys, I better wrap up this show before the sponsors start pulling out. You've been a fantastic audience as always, so thank you for stopping by. Before I go, could I ask you one favor? You mind clicking that like button for me? It's a big help. I'd appreciate it. You know what else I'd appreciate? Clicking the subscribe button and dinging the bell. I'd love for you to come back sometime, and being a subscriber makes it easier for me to trick you into accidentally clicking on more of my videos. Thank you again, and a big thanks to this week's sponsor, MSI. So my personal laptop of choice is an MSI. I've been using their laptops for years now, even before they sponsored the channel, because they've always made a fantastic laptop that balances form factor and performance. Right now I'm using the MSI Stealth GS77. It's what I take with me when I go away to events like E3 or that recent trip to Japan, and it's fantastic because even though it has a sleek, low profile form factor, it's still able to handle everything I throw at it, from AAA games through to video editing and rendering. As much as I love it, it might be time to upgrade, because just this month MSI have unveiled their 2023 lineup of laptops, and it is very impressive indeed. The Stealth series refresh maintains the balanced approach to form factor and performance. Their new Studio range have an ultra-light, ultra-sturdy chassis, meaning that they're able to pack in a huge amount of performance while keeping the total laptop weight under 2 kilograms. They also made improvements to their already industry-leading cooling technology, allowing you to push even more performance out of both the CPU and the GPU. If top-end gaming performance is your priority, then you might be interested in their Titan range. This thing features a 13th gen Intel CPU, an RTX 40 series GPU, DDR5 memory, and a 240Hz quad high definition screen. This thing is more powerful than most dedicated desktop PCs on the market, with the added benefit of being totally portable. You can plug this thing into your TV and use it in place of a games console, which is actually exactly what I do. What if you work in the visual arts or are a content creator? Well, MSI's Creator Z series is for you. With an i9 processor, NVIDIA 40 series GPU, DDR5 memory, and Gen 5 SSD, the Creator Z series delivers everything a creator might need while still balancing weight and form factor, delivering something you can easily carry with you to the office, on trips, or just to the couch if you feel like stepping away from your desk for a bit. There's plenty more in the MSI 2023 lineup that I haven't spoken about here, but bottom line, this is the moment when brand new cutting-edge laptops are hitting the market. The first to sport NVIDIA's 40 series GPUs. If you've been thinking about buying a laptop but waiting for the next upgrade cycle to roll through, then it is here. This is it. To check out MSI's full range, click the link in the description below. Thanks MSI for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.